And as you mentioned, we're going to do a joint Q&A session with you and Bonnie, who is our next speaker, Bonnie Thompson with the Sterling Field Support Center. Bonnie, in her spare time, manages social media accounts for a local nonprofit organization that supports underprivileged LGBTQ plus youth. So Bonnie, thank you for that. And you're going to be talking about the role of the Sterling Field Support Center with Upper Air stuff. So looking forward to that. So go right ahead.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. I am in the office, so I apologize.
Coming through loud and clear.
If there's any background noise. Get my screen up. So I am at the Sterling Field Support Center. For those of you who have not heard of us, we kind of do a little bit of everything. Right now, a lot of focus is on Upper Air, but I personally am the Upper Air lead, so I oversee everything that happens in the Upper Air process at Sterling Field Support Center. I do have our Upper Air help desk information. You'll see that come up several times. I am part of the help desk, and we've got a very solid team here to support all Upper Air, and you'll see me plug that several times throughout the meeting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our mission here at the Sterling Field Support Center. For anyone not aware, we kind of are involved in all aspects of what the Weather Service is doing with data, whether it's surface or Upper Air observations. And we do have a 230-acre complex here, so we're quite big. We're located, co-located with the Baltimore, Washington Forecasting Office. And we are a test and evaluation facility for all observing systems. So that means we are dedicated to supporting, advancing, and quality assurance of all meteorological observations taken by the whole Weather Service and a few other government agencies. So our core mission is to ensure all observing systems are in part or in entirety producing scientifically sound data conforming to national and international standards for upper air, surface, and climatological reporting. So what does that look like? We have labs here where we do lots of laboratory testing. We travel to various places throughout CONUS. We've traveled into Canada and the Pacific for in situ field testing. This picture at the top is actually in Caribou, I believe, and that's one of our staff members doing some test launches there. So we also provide field support, whether that is proactive or reactive, where we're involved with developing as necessary, testing and implementing, and then supporting all of these systems. And that's not just for upper air, but lately that's been the bulk of it. So our upper air program, we support 92 stations, 91 right now with the loss of Chatham, hopefully going to get the Chatham upper air site relocated, but 92 is the full support across North America and the Pacific Islands. We also support 10 stations in the Caribbean. That's for the Caribbean Hurricane Upper Air Support Network, or CHUOS network. This includes, like I said, the development, evaluation, implementation of upper air instrumentation and systems. The support that we provide is proactive and reactive. And what does that look like? So our biggest goal is to keep upper air station downtime as limited as possible. So if something happens, whether it's as minor as a software radio sound issue or as major as a wildfire has destroyed your observation building, we will do everything in our power to get you back to an operational state as fast as possible. We do have a goal within 48-hour turnaround time if you do need some critical structural resupport, where we will get to that where we can provide that for MROS. We'll get to that ability for deployment. It has happened in the past. Our team was actually finally able to get to St. Martin last year to bring their upper air site back to operations, retrain some of the staff, and rebuild them after the site was lost in Hurricane Irma. And the wildfire situation holds true, at least in San Diego in the mid-late 2000s, the upper air station was lost, and our team deployed to get them back within just a few days with a temporary system while they rebuilt. So that's our reactive help desk. If anyone contacts us with issues, we do everything we can to resolve that as fast as possible. If we don't have the answers, we do what we can to find them. And proactive, we do a lot of field monitoring, which I will get more into. And we may be reaching out to you, especially during OT&E, for a lot of that proactive support. So that being said, our help desk here for Upper Air, we are currently operating 7 days a week from 10 to 02 UTC, including holidays. So we do have staff on to support most windows for launches. If you're doing specials around 6Z, unfortunately, we won't be there to answer the phones, but for 12 and 0Z, we're there. Anything happening pre or post launch and everything in between. So I've got this chart here to kind of show what this looks like. So we've got primary and support functions. Primary is the troubleshooting, where we have incident management and a tiered support system for escalation. We do have an incident response team, or SMEs, for escalated system support needs for all regions. And I'll get a little more into what that tiered support looks like. For active monitoring, this is our proactive approach. So we have a system-wide view of performance and operations. One of the simplest tools that we use that anyone doing upper air has likely heard of, and that is the thanks page, which I'll show an example of later. But if we ever see or catch wind that data is not getting out to the field during the launch, we may contact your office. We do check weather first to be mindful, but we will contact something happening that we might be able to assist with, or anything that might need to be brought to someone else's attention. And we try to do that in real time so we can get no flights missed is the goal. And as I alluded to, we have an emergency response and disaster recovery plan to recover inoperable systems. We do try to restore operations to minimize downtime as much as possible. For support functions, we do have predictive maintenance and feedback, where maybe the person you contact on a help desk doesn't have a very technical answer, but we have technicians we can push them to, or subject matter experts here in our localized network in the office. So part of that means we have the opportunity to test some of these maintenance procedures and validate procedures, and we have experts that have the know-how to walk technicians in the field through them. So there's no question too big or too small that we won't try to tackle. We also request feedback if issues arise, maybe with the procedures themselves. You can route that through us and we'll get that distributed appropriately. We also store and manage metadata, and this is something that the deployment teams are working very diligently on. If you've had a deployment in your office, or if you're expecting one soon, you will understand the metadata questions are pretty extensive. We are doing everything we can to get all these questions answered before we need them, whether that's maintaining copies of sites configuration files for their upper air systems, or all of their metadata for how the software is configured in case that can't be recovered. This is also going to be very beneficial when we do data continuity evaluations between legacy and new systems. So tiered support, this is kind of what this looks like for tier 0, that's the field. This is, for example, during a flight attempt, the observer's having an issue. They ask the person in their office, hey, is this something you've seen before? They ask a technician. You get internal assistance. Tier 1 is us. They call or email. We create a ticket and we try to resolve it right away remotely. Tier 2 is remote SME assistance. If you ever hear us say we have to dig into something or we'll need to bounce some ideas around off, especially our MROS team, we will contact you back as quickly as possible, but we do work with our SMEs that we have here at Sterling Field Sports Center and again, try to resolve the incident remotely. This has been critical with supporting OT&E. Tier 3 is the SME on-site support. For some sites, such as MROS sites that are still under warranty, we try to escalate directly to Tier 4 to utilize warranty when we can. But the Tier 3 SME support will be us deploying our subject matter experts to a site to resolve an incident as necessary. And lastly, for vendor assistance, we request vendor support, so we would be reaching out to Grawl or Vizsla to help get assistance as needed. And then the vendor would resolve that incident under warranty or for a fee. So circling back to our proactive approach, this is an example of the thanks page, which is probably the most polite way that NCEP could let the field know that they've got your data for the flight and all is well. This screenshot is from when we had the full field of 92. So 74494 there is Chatham, which was decommissioned at the end of last March due to issues related to the erosion at that location. But a few things to point out here. This is something we look at for every synoptic flight, all 7 days a week. If we see something like this site 72251, this is an indication of a no data message transmitted. We'll go check SDM logs and we'll look into what that no data message was. If we see a ground equipment failure, we'll monitor for a flight, or we'll go ahead and reach out right away if we're able to do so and see if that's something we might be able to help provide some assistance with. And if we see something like 70316, this is just a complete no report. We will definitely reach out and ask, is there anything going on that we can help get these messages out? Was there a flight even taken? There's been several situations like this where we've reached out to sites that didn't know their messages weren't getting out. Maybe it's getting hung up somewhere in the pathway from the computer to NCEP. Then we can transmit messages on behalf of sites. We can also submit no data messages on behalf of sites. This has happened especially during the times of COVID, where we've seen no report on the thanks page, and we've reached out to sites and not gotten an answer because no one's in the office. They had to evacuate for one reason or another. Or we'll get a phone call from the field saying, we can't do a flight, no one's going to be there to do it, we had to leave our building. Can you send out a no data message for us? A lot of that function is also supported by the site's backup, which is fantastic, but we're there and happy to do what we can to help you out. Specifically for OT&E, we've been really upping our game on proactive approaches, and we are assisting our OT&E team for MROS SIR submissions, as Aaron alluded to, and collecting files. You'll probably get contacts from us asking for files. We're helping sort them for vendors to dive into and try to reproduce and troubleshoot these issues. But we do have the dedicated regional SME teams available for that have been going on MROS deployments. Those are all here at Sterling. And as Aaron alluded to, there are over 200 system issue reports currently for OT&E. Help desk is either troubleshooting or submitted on behalf of sites or has assisted with over half of those. So we've been involved in a lot of these issues. And future support from us will include updating CLC courses, user manuals, and software update evaluation assistance. I'm throwing this in here for reference for anyone who can have access to these slides later for our other departments at Sterling Field Support Center. We do have an ASOS, co-op, and quality management teams, which includes the Pressure Standards Lab. There's contact info here for anyone who has questions related to those items. This picture is a freezing spray test here at our facility in our chambers, in our environmental chambers lab we have. And the last thing I would like to plug is our other help desk. We do have a co-op help desk available on weekdays and a Pressure Standards Lab help desk for barometer questions and issues, also available on weekdays. Lastly, there's our help desk number. Like I said, call us, contact us for any upper issues. For OT&E, we will help submit a SIR, we'll help track down an issue, we'll answer questions if it's another instance of an issue. if you've got a question about the software concern, bring it to our attention and we'll get that resolved for you. And with that, we can move on into questions.
Yeah. Before we get into questions, let me just go ahead and echo what you just said there, Bonnie, from a field standpoint. And I think most people on the call would agree. You all are outstanding there. Whenever we have questions in the field, even if you don't know the answer, you all do anything and everything that you can to get to an answer. So it's greatly appreciated. We did have a question here that popped up. Will any offices be doing dual system flights for data continuity studies?
So that is in the plan. I'm not exactly sure which offices or what that timeline looks like, but the goal would be dual bars. Actually, this behind me, this big crossbar, is something we're doing here for data continuity, and that's comparing legacy and newer systems. So we'll be doing dual launches at some sites. That just has not been decided yet.
Just to add on to that a little bit, the original intended plan had to get kind of scrapped because of the issues with sound availability on the legacy system and support for that system. And then,
right.
You said that's being adapted. There's a couple of different options that are being looked into. One of those options is doing that solely at the Field Support Center because they have the capability and the systems there. Other options are to have burn down sites using both systems to get rid of old SONs as they go. I don't believe the decision has been completely made yet, but it is being looked into because we would like to collect at least some continuity data, especially more so for the GRAW system because there's already a lot of continuity out there between the different types of VISLA SONs.
COVID is playing a role in that as well.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I think that's a standing theme for just about everything these days. Okay, Tom, you got your hand up. Go ahead and fire away.
Thank you, Bonnie and Aaron, for that. A question on the GRAW, the block diagram, and I noticed that there's not a lightning suppression system. Do you know if the Caribbean hurricane sites, did they have that lightning suppression system connected in with from the amplifier to the cable?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. But I can't conclusively tell you yes or no.
So did you guys?
I would agree.
Did you guys at Sterling have that? You were tested when you tested there. You had that.
Yes, they were tested that way because that's the way they're being installed.
Gotcha. Cool. The other
and also, I believe the systems that Tom Bergdorf has for training have. If he doesn't have them hooked up, he will at some point.
Super. I have a second question. As far as do you know how they came about? I know it's probably not in your purview here. How do they come up with who gets what system? I know Central Region doesn't seem like they got 66% of the GRAW and 33% of the VISAL. I think it was maybe switched the other way, but we got more GRAW here than
So the split contractually was done with about 2/3 to GRAW and about 1/3 to VISLA, and part of that is cost, supportability, responsiveness of the vendor, and the way their proposals were that came in for the solicitation. Another aspect of it is VISLA already has all of Alaska, 2 sites in the Pacific region, and about 8 CONUS with the AutoSON.
Gotcha.
So that came into play as well. And then once they got down to the specific vendor-based numbers, it was the original intent was to grid the entire country, so we would never have a whole region going blank. But there were data concerns and certain types of weather conditions, so they split the distribution a little differently. And at one point, part of that was also, if you look at the legacy system, you could return SONs for reconditioning. At one point, there was the possibility one of these 2 vendors would do reconditioning of SONs and the other would not. That has since changed because of cost. It's actually cheaper for us to just buy new SONs rather than pay the shipping and rehash costs. So that was part of the original intent as well, that so the SONs that would be less likely to come down overpopulated areas were the ones that weren't going to be reconditioned anyhow. So they were putting them more around the rims. And it also has to do with data capability in like I said, in certain weather conditions, like high humidity conditions, things like that.
So do you know if there's going to be any testing on, because of how light these SONs are? I know the MROS does not have a parachute to them. Are they going to be doing testing at Sterling or somewhere to say, okay, we really don't need parachutes, or go with smaller parachutes?
There's been an ongoing thought exercise and kind of reaching out to industry on that. Considering that the GROS-ON only weighs about 4 grams more than the parachute package does, if the SON were designed to catch air, it would actually end up being the parachute for the parachute. We've actually done a lot of looking into, and this is one of the things Bill Blackmore and I did a lot before he retired, and that was looking into actually using model rocketry style streamers, because they would slow the descent down but would not have as much waste and would not cost as much. There's been no decision made. This is something Hiram's been talking with leadership about as well. So it is, no decision has been made, but it is definitely on the chalkboard.
And that follow up on that too is maybe a smaller way you use a GP26 balloon. I don't know if
that's another thing that's been in the looks as well, was to use a smaller balloon like we used to use. There's a couple of different challenges with that, and that is the rule that we have on having to have more than one vendor for balloons and things like that, because as we saw with the Fukushima incident, we completely lost the ability to get our balloons because the factory was impacted by that. So there's some other things that go into play with how we separate out, and some vendors have those sizes and some no longer do. But it is something that is actively being looked into. Because anytime we can cut our costs on balloon materials, string, parachutes, and gas especially, is going to be a very big boon for the program. Those gas prices are not going down, that's for sure.
So one of the last one, I'm sorry I'm taking up all these questions, is this, I heard rumor is that to pay for this installs of all the MROS systems, is that when we sold the frequencies, the 1600 ones, and that the money we got from that helped pay for the new.
So it's the terminology for the project that oversees all of MROS transition is called Radio SON Frequency Migration Project. It covers most of these things and some others. And so what happened was basically the 1680 band was given to other groups, and then those groups had their frequencies sold by NTIA in an auction for 5G transition. That brought in a large amount of money for various different parts of the government, and Weather Service was one of those parts that got it to transition out of 1680, because that band can handle high bandwidth data transmission, which is something we certainly weren't doing. We are the only users in the world that use 1680, and that made our radio SONs cost more because they were one-offs for us. Let me rephrase that. Only users for upper air data. Those SONs were going up in cost constantly because of the frequency we were using. 400 to 405, so basically the 403 band, it has been the standard set aside per ITA, which is basically the frequency version of WMO. For meteorological instrumentation for all types. The only problem with Weather Service moving into that is we will see more bleed over and noise from other users, because we are no longer the sole user in that band. But it does save us a lot of money and gives us more options out there for vendors. And because of the static antennas, the SONs are and the antennas are smaller, easier to maintain. It's all just, order a new part, put a new one in. No moving parts, no motor control units, yokes to fall apart anymore. And the chips that are inside the SONs can be smaller, which cuts down on the weight and the packaging again.
All right. No, good stuff there. Well, thank you, Aaron and Bonnie, for that. And thank you for the great.
Can I add one thing real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I know you already said it. I want to do it since there's so many people out here from the region. Absolute huge debt of gratitude to everyone at Sterling Field Support Center. That facility has been through a lot of tough time, staffing and budget-wise for the last 20 years. And no matter who is there, what contract it is, or the individuals involved, they always do a phenomenal job at their support, not only of the field, but of doing the kind of forward facing for the entire agency when there's a problem. It's not easy to be the one getting yelled at when someone can't get something to work. So huge thanks to the help desk for Upper Air and the other programs. Having come from being a contractor in Sterling, developing algorithms and sensors for ASOS and Upper Air, it's come a long way with the amount of expertise they've developed out there. It's much bigger than it ever was. And they're doing an absolute bang-up job.
Absolutely. Bonnie, pat yourself on the back and tell everybody else to do the same. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and transition to you here because one of the reasons why I let kind of Tom talk is he was eating his own time.